Black America is stuck in the matrix due to 3 reasons. First, our women have fallen for modern feminism's sexual liberation scam, which is part of the reason why the black race is beginning to stagnate. Secondly, we blindly vote for Democrats, even though they haven't done much to help our community in the past 60 years. And lastly, we've let mass media, such as record companies and news outlets, control and exploit us through their reinforcement of our toxic behaviors and emotions. At this point, it's time for us to take the red pill. Now I'm gonna have to censor a couple things here, but you'll know what I mean.
I care about the fact that there's more black babies being than born in New York City at this point. That 50% of black in America is a...
This issue is kind of a double-edged sword for me because I'm pro-choice and would agree that if a woman knows she's not ready to be a mother, then she should have the choice to not be one. However, at the same time, the black race is stagnating, with one of the leading issues being high rates of among black women. I think the reason for this is our consumption of toxic black culture, which is portrayed in the media. And don't get me wrong, there's also toxicity in non-black media. However, I think a lot of our black youth and even black adults are more likely to mimic this type of behavior, but I'll explain why later. Take female rap, for example. What's mostly talked about in the lyrics is sex, sexual freedom, ain't shit men, getting rich men to spend money, and vanity. And I'm not gonna act like I don't occasionally partake in this type of music, because I do.
No.
Hey! As women, I do think this type of music negatively influences our behavior and how we interact with our men. Mainstream female rap is promoted as empowering and also has the power to influence us to be more self-centered in our relationships, avoid vulnerability and trust, or influence us to try to emasculate or dominate our partners. I emphasize mainstream female rappers because there are female rappers like No Name, Rhapsody, and Tierra Whack that receive way less notoriety simply because they don't constantly rap about popping their and or aren't viewed as hypersexual. When I was in college and taking a marriage and family course, I learned that out of all racial groups, black women are better at being alone. We're able to reach our educational goals and grow in our careers in the midst of broken homes without husbands. And at the time, the little 19-year-old feminist that I was felt proud to have this independence. But now I'm starting to realize that that was kind of a bad thing.
Sniping, fighting, cutting each other down. I don't want to lose all that.
Because of our ability to be independent, we don't respect our men. And more they're starting to look outside of our race for women to marry. And if they do stay within our race, they may try to find a black woman who's Caribbean or Haitian or Trinidadian, etc. Because these black women are more traditional than American black women. And I'm not saying all black men are perfect, but the ones that would actually make good husbands are just getting tired of our attitudes and disrespect. So they're leaving. Back in the day, it used to be seen as really bad if you were a single mother. However, today, modern feminism and the sexual liberation movement has taken away the stigma of having children out of wedlock. And it's also aided in conditioning women to be okay with having sex with no strings attached, both of which is hurting the black community disproportionately.
I hate how I allowed myself to just be like used up by men. That came from a lack of self-worth. I did not understand my value that I was born with. I didn't. And people that I shared my body with, when I think about my list, it's repulsive because they didn't deserve it. But that was an outcome of me discounting my worth. You gave a sacred part of you to a man that looked at sex with you as taking a piss. It's disgusting to think about. And I feel like I've beat myself up every single day for my decision.
Men are able to detach sex from love, but typically women aren't able to do this. These days, it's often frowned upon for women to want to be wives, And if we do want to be wives, then we're labeled as pick-me's. Women will say they want sex with no strings attached, but then will say men are trash when they provide sex with no commitment. It just doesn't make sense. If more women required a relationship before sex and marriage before having children, then we would have way more marriages in two-parent households in our community. Our children desperately needs two-parent households. Children who are born in single-parent homes have higher rates of living in poverty, being imprisoned later in life, having mental health or behavioral issues, or becoming single parents themselves. Me personally, my parents never married. However, I'm fortunate enough to have both parents in my life, but I didn't always have my dad. And I think because of that, I craved male attention and validation. And there's many more black girls growing up going through the same thing I did. What I'm trying to say is, if you meet a guy and he doesn't seem good enough to marry, don't have a baby by him either. I think there's like 12 different types of birth control. And if that's the case, then should be an absolute last resort. On top of that, our bodies are sacred. We have to treat them as such. We're having casual sex with men and somehow think that we're winning and that this has set us free. But in all honesty, since men are better able to detach sex from love, you're kind of just giving them free without having to commit.
The dark side of the sexual revolution is that even though it liberated women, unyoking sex from the consequences has primarily benefited men. Of the dozens of men I've been with, at least the ones I remember, I can only think of a handful I don't regret. I'd say most of these usually drunken encounters left me feeling empty and demoralized, and worthless. I wanted to be able to have meaningless sex like a guy, but it didn't work. If you know your value, you're less likely to sleep with someone who doesn't value you. Cherish yourself and you will be cherished. Don't ignore that nagging gut instinct telling you sexual liberation leaves you feeling unfulfilled. I regret being a slut. I regret it because I regret that those men can say they slept with me. Still, that's how I know I finally value myself.
In the sisterhood, we often talk about what we need from our men and how they can benefit our lives. But we never talk about what we can do to benefit their lives. And a relationship is supposed to be mutually beneficial. I also think sometimes we can be a little bit shallow. Growing up, I would only date guys who I thought my friends would approve of. If I liked a guy, but I thought my friends wouldn't like him, then I wouldn't date him. I think a lot of women do this, but why? Why do we care so much what our friends think that we jeopardize finding love? Why do we only want the guy that other girls want? If he's attractive and or has money, then a lot of girls are going to want to date him. And if a lot of girls want to date him, then he has more options. If he has more options, then he's more likely to be a player. This is why many of us flock to rappers or other celebrities. In the end, we're just playing ourselves. So date who you want to date and not who you think your friends would date. If he's a good man and he treats you right, then your real friends are going to be happy for you, no matter how he looks or how much money he makes. As long as he's financially stable on his own, that's all that should really matter. Lastly, because black women are more educated than black men, it's a common misconception that we earn more money. But on average, that's not really true. Black men earn about $5,000 annually more than black women, even though we're more educated. We oftentimes think that if we date someone who's less educated or earns less money than us, that we're dating down. But the average black man earns about $45,000 annually. And the way I see it, as long as you can split the bills 50-50, I don't see what the problem is. Black Americans have been blindly voting Democrat for years, although we're worse off now than we were 60 years ago. Currently, we're the second highest racial group living in poverty, black men have the highest rates of being imprisoned, and like we just discussed, black women hold the highest rates of out of all racial groups. Shouldn't the Democratic politicians that we voted in office attempt to help us get to the root of these problems? Yes, but are they? Not really. Instead, we have Hillary Clinton pandering to us with hot sauce, and Joe Biden denying blackness to those of us who didn't want to vote for him.
Long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, Swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I
yes.
just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people.
Okay. Is it working?
No matter what race you are, you should be able to vote for whoever you want. Be a free thinker, do your own research, and make your own choice. Not voting Democrat doesn't mean you ain't black. Me personally, in the past, I've always voted Democrat, but I recently changed my voting party from Democrat to Independent because I don't want to be stuck in party lines. I'd rather vote for who I think has my best interest at heart, no matter the candidate's race or political affiliation. I think the Democratic Party oftentimes takes the black vote for granted. And to me, it kind of seems like Democrats want us to remain fearful of racism and oppression, so that we're unified in trusting them to save us. And don't get me wrong, racism and oppression definitely still exist, but I don't think they're as prevalent as made out to be by Democrats in the mass media. Historically, Democrats have provided government handouts like welfare, but I'd argue that welfare benefits just make people more dependent on the government and less likely to build and become self-sufficient on their own.
So when's the last time you held a job?
Like a year ago, I was cashier.
Okay. And is there an injury or something?
No.
So
no, I was fired for being late.
So you're just lazy?
No, it was.
So you just trifling?
I was late. I was just.
So you trifling?
Maybe, yeah. Okay.
Are you trolling me?
No. No.
Let me see your hand. Let me see your hands. Put those up. Uh-oh, nice fingernails.
Thank you.
Did you do those yourself?
No.
You went and got them done?
Mm-hmm.
Who paid for that?
I paid for them.
With what?
With the unemployment money.
Are you trolling me?
No, but Kevin, don't you think I have to look like something?
And I think you need to grow up.
Oh, okay.
Ma'am, you're 33 years old and haven't had a job in a year, and the job you had as a cashier, you got fired from for being late. That's lazy and that's trifling. If you were a man, they would call you a deadbeat. But the only reason you get away with this is because you got 2 kids and you get unemployment, so you're juking the state. Then you got the nerve to have these fingernails up like you got money to pay for them. That's trash. The taxpayers are paying for this.
Welfare benefits should only be used in the short term. However, there's Black Americans that have survived off of welfare for generations. Besides Lyndon B. Johnson signing into law the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s, what have Democrats done for us? I know he had his Great Society initiative, but that was kind of a bust because he pulled out for the Vietnam War. And outside of these government handouts, what have other Democrats done for us like Obama and Biden? Now, I will give Obama some credit because he did create the My Brother's Keeper Alliance towards the end of his presidency, which is helping Black men to this day. However, a lot of us voted for him assuming he would do more for the Black community. In my opinion, a great deal of us lack self-discipline, self-confidence, and accountability in ourselves. And oftentimes, we simply just blame racism and oppression for why we can't get ahead in life. There's businesses you can start where race is not a factor. You can upsell stuff on eBay, get into stock trading, or even website building or blogging. At times, there are some barriers in other professions, but even if that's the case, should we let that stop us from even trying? We're so used to being coddled by Democrats. And sure, they help us in the short term, but they're hurting us in the long term. And I think there are some Democrats that really believe they're helping. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. However, if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Stop giving us the fish! Stop enabling us and reinforcing our bad behaviors. In my opinion, we'd be way better off with things like training programs that could lead to jobs, rather than welfare benefits and complete student loan forgiveness. Oftentimes, Black Americans may react to events based on emotions rather than logic. And mass media uses this to their own benefit. Mass media doesn't truly care about honesty. They care about ratings. Liberal news media outlets act as if police officers are unarmed Black people in the streets constantly, when in reality, 80 to 90% of our are Black on Black. Before I told you that, you might have assumed that a majority of our homicides are committed by police officers. Given how much coverage goes into these cases, However, that's just not true. And I'm not at all minimizing cases of police against Black victims. All I'm saying is stop letting mass media control your emotions and how you think. Be a free thinker. Don't solely form your opinion based off CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or even me. According to BLM's 2020 tax filing, the organization raised $90 million in donations and made various unethical purchases. This included $32 million into the stock market, $6 million was used to purchase a mansion in Los Angeles, millions also went to various transgender charities. The organization currently has $42 million in assets. I don't believe any of this is being used to help the Black community. And oddly enough, none of this made front page news in any of the liberal news media outlets. And why do you think that is? In my opinion, they want us to stay ignorant. They want us to stay in a victim mindset. Because when we're in that mindset, we're easier to control. We have to stop blindly following mass media because they don't have our best interest at heart. I know George Floyd is a touchy subject for a lot of us, especially with everything that went on after his death. But this needs to be said for the betterment of our community. Plus, I came with the facts. In the media, George Floyd was portrayed as a gentle giant who was simply trying to get his life back on track. And I think he really did want to turn away from his past and get his life back together. However, at the time of his encounter with police officers, he admitted to committing his crime and was high on and not to mention, one of the people he was with was his dealer. He resisted arrest, and a partially chewed up pill was found in the squad car where he was initially detained and found in his DNA during his autopsy. And if you watch the body cam footage, you can tell that he's on something. Although there's overwhelming evidence of this, does that mean he deserved to? No, of course not. But why was he specifically made out to be the martyr of Black issues when all of this was found? Elijah McClain or Breonna Taylor would have been a way better fit than George Floyd. Also, I find it extremely weird that his family did all the media rounds after his death, but according to his ex-roommates, his family never visited his home or even picked up his belongings after he passed away. After his death, there were peaceful protesters, but there were also looters and rioters. They caused over $1 billion in damages to small business owners. I understand that people were angry, but how does looting and rioting in our own communities help our communities? These people stole and or destroyed that. And these communities are worse off now than they were before. And to make things even worse, Chrissy Teigen pledged $200,000 to bailouts. Do you think Chrissy Teigen would want to bail out these people if they were looting and rioting in her gated community? No, of course not. But it's totally fine when you loot and riot your own community. The neighborhood where George Floyd is now an autonomous zone, meaning that it operates by its own laws. It's labeled George Perry Floyd Square, and there's also signage that says you are now entering the free state of George Floyd. Businesses have shut down in that area, it's barricaded, emergency vehicles don't come there, and crime has increased drastically. In that specific area, there's been a 58% increase in. Again, how does this help Black Americans? Better yet, how does it help the people that live there? It is true that Black people are victims of police more than any other racial group. However, we're only 14% of the population, yet we commit 40% of all violent crimes. And I believe the reason for that is at the root. We struggle with father absence more than any other racial group. We've dealt with increased father absence for the past 50 years, and although we may not realize it, this issue has caused us to become heavily influenced by mass media and society as a whole. And as I stated earlier in this video, children born into single-parent homes have higher rates of living in poverty, being in prison later in life, having mental health and behavioral issues, or becoming single parents themselves. It's a vicious cycle that needs to end with us. In closing, in my opinion, it's all about our youth because they're the future. We've been blue-pilled for too long, and it's time for us to wake up and fix our communities. That's all I have for this video. Any facts that I stated are linked below in the description. If you like this video, please leave me a like and a comment, and also don't forget to subscribe. It really helps to get this video out to more people when you like and comment. Comment down below and just let me know what you think, whether you agree or disagree. It's important for us to start having these conversations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.